We are now in the last international break of the year. Arsenal enter it on the back of an agonising 2-2 draw against Sunderland. The winning run is gone. The clean sheet record is gone, thanks to one of their own in Dan Ballard. There was all the pre-game talk about, will Granit Xhaka haunt Arsenal? And then, of course, it's the other one, Dan Ballard, who comes and does it. So, like I say, I think that's now, so 8 clean sheets in a row, 812 minutes without conceding. Those records are gone. There is the argument that it comes before the international break, so it's not the worst time to lose it. But then again, Arsenal have got this ridiculously daunting run when the internationals end. Spurs, Bayern, and Chelsea all before the end of the month. So, by that logic, was it quite bad timing for them to lose this winning streak?
I don't know if I mean, any time's a bad time to lose a winning streak, isn't it? But um, it was going to happen at some point. You cannot win every single game. You cannot keep a clean sheet in every single game. It's just impossible. Records are there for a reason. They're hard to break, and Arsenal have broken so many of them on this run. So it was inevitable. It was going to happen. It was disappointing for it to happen not the clean sheets, but in terms of the winning run. It was disappointing for it to happen the way it is, or frustrating is probably a better word, because it was so close, and it would have been such a massive win. To do it a really tough ground, and it was. It was everything we thought it was going to be. The noise was intimidating. Sunderland were really good. They were on it. They played to their strengths. And for Arsenal to be 1-0 down at half time, to have come back and won that game 2-1 in the manner that they did, and the way they played in that second half, it would have been huge for them, not just for the points, but in terms of mental belief, everything like that, psychology. So that was the sort of frustration that I felt at the end of the game. It wasn't about the winning run. It wasn't about the clean sheets. It was about they were so close to what I think would have been such a massive win on a lot of levels. They just let it slip through their fingers. So that was the main sort of crux of the frustration for me.
Yes, of course, they were visiting a ground where Sunderland are still unbeaten in the Premier League this season, facing a side who had that famous win away to Chelsea as well. And like you were saying there about the clean sheets, yes, 812 minutes without conceding before Dan Ballard lashed that brilliant finish, has to be said, into the roof of the net. And then that last minute Brian Brobby equaliser, which, I think us Arsenal fans thought this is gonna, we're gonna make it. It's gonna be okay because normally the defense is so on the ball, but for the first time in recent or a long while at least, Gabriel was out muscled by Brobby there. I mean, just overall in the game, what do you think went wrong with Arsenal defensively that we haven't seen happen in the previous games?
I don't know. I just think Sunderland unsettled them, really. I think Sunderland have got such a defined way of playing. It is very, very direct. You saw it in the first sort of 2 minutes. They had a free kick deep inside their own half, and the camera sort of zoomed in on Granit Xhaka, and he was just pointing. He was just like, get it up there. And everyone went up there. The centre back, it was like a corner. And that kind of set the tone, I think, and it was all about, it wasn't just about the first ball, it was about the second ball as well. And both of their goals came, it was second balls, really. It was, I can't remember who got the header on, who flicked it to Ballard for the first goal. And then obviously it was Ballard who did it for the second goal, leading to Brobby's goal. And so Arsenal, it wasn't just that they didn't deal with the first ball in either of those occasions. They didn't deal with the second ball either. And I think that will be what was disappointing. I don't know what I could put it down to, because these are players who are usually very, very good at that. I think you just got to credit Sunderland as well. As I said, they had a real way of playing. They obviously worked hard during the week thinking, how can we hurt this Arsenal team? What can we do to unsettle them? And they put that into practice very, very well. And Arsenal just looked a little bit shaky. Gabriel was just not quite as dominant as always. Declan Rice for the first goal, I think he was so worried about Dan Ballard, he forgot to actually try and properly head the ball away. It was a weird challenge for him. He totally misjudged the flight of the ball. So they just got under Arsenal's skin a little bit. And we haven't been able to really say that so often this season. So I think you've got to really sort of pay a bit of credit to Sunderland for the way they played and the way they executed their game plan.
So, yeah, and you mentioned before the game, the atmosphere of the Stadium of Light it's really intimidating place for any side to go. But yeah, before that Robbie equaliser, there was two really, really well taken finishes from Bukayo Saka and Leandro Trossard. But unfortunately, Mikel Merino up front, he couldn't make the same impact as he did against Slavia Prague. Was that a game where you think Arsenal really missed the presence of a Victor Gyökeres or a Kai Havertz?
I think so, yeah. I mean, it was always going to be the case, wasn't it? Especially Gyökeres, the way, Arsenal have finally started to get really used to the way that they can play with Gyökeres. And it's just an outball, isn't it? It's just hit the channel, let him run, stretch the defence, pull him out of position. And they just didn't really have that at all in the game. They weren't able to do it. Some of them were quite comfortable being able to sort of push up a little bit and the way that Mourinho was playing. So they definitely missed Victor Gyökeres in that regard. Mourinho did his job and he did it pretty well. He did what he was being asked of him, but it just didn't have that. Arsenal didn't have that threat in behind in terms of just getting the ball out and getting down the channels and letting Victor do what he did against Burnley so well. So I think they were always going to miss him, and I think they did. But that's not the reason that Arsenal didn't win the game. At the end of the day, they scored two really, really good goals, and for half an hour in that second half, they played as well as they've played. Certainly against a low block all season, they were really, really good, and they pulled Sunderland apart. They created loads of chances. They scored two good goals. For this Arsenal team, that should be enough to win the game. So I don't really look at what they did in attack as the reason Arsenal didn't win at the weekend. It was more, for the first time in a long, long time that we can say it, it was what happened at the back is why they didn't win the game.
Absolutely, yeah. And hindsight is a wonderful thing, of course, but I was looking at Arteta's substitutions. He made just the one change in the game, which was Eberechi off for Mosquera in the 88th minute when Sunderland were chasing the game. Like I say, it's so easy to look back now and think, oh, could he or should he have done things differently? Do you think that? Do you look at the changes that he made or didn't make and think, oh, that was a bit, not great timing, or he could have done something differently there?
I do, yeah. I kind of looked at it, and look, I know they've got basically nothing going forward. And I've seen people saying, "Oh, Ethan Nwaneri should have come in." I didn't feel like that was a game for Ethan Nwaneri. I think the way the game state had gone at that point, he would have been bypassed. It would have been Sunderland just booting the ball long into the box, and Ethan wouldn't have gotten that ball. And I don't see Ethan holding the ball up to really be able to ease any pressure when it does get played out to him. So I didn't feel like he was the sub, but I still feel that there were subs on that bench that could have been used, that could have helped Arsenal get the ball further away from their penalty area. Hincapié, very experienced player. When he gets the ball on that left-hand side, he can go down that flank. He's very, very good. He's strong. He can carry the ball. He can ease the pressure. It might not lead to anything, but at least it gets Arsenal up the pitch. Ben White, I think, could do that similarly as well on the right-hand side. You could see that Arsenal players were pretty gassed in that last 20 minutes. It had been a really demanding week. 3 big away games, long travel away games. Christian Norgard, could he have come on with 15, 20 minutes to go in front of that defence as well, just to get out and close the ball down a little bit quicker than some of the tiring players were doing. So I did feel like, although the options were very limited for Arteta, and certainly from an attacking point of view, I think there were options there that he probably could have turned to. But I can understand his reasoning as well. He was probably looking at that and thinking, this is one big final push where these players have given everything, but can they just get through another few minutes? Will I disrupt things if I change things a little bit? The game pattern is pretty set for this last 15 minutes. He knew that Sunderland were just going to be bombing balls into the box. Ballard was going forward, try and get the second balls. He knew what was coming. So I didn't really have an issue with the Mosquera sub. I just felt like maybe he could have just freshened things up a little bit and give him a bit more legs in there to try and get the ball away from the box a little bit quicker. I think there were options there to do that.